Hello there. Isn't it strange that no one wants you to know how and where the recent health emergency originated? So Matt Hancock made references in his memoirs that he wants to publish as to how and where the recent health emergency started. And because his narrative was at odds with the UK official position that it was a total coincidence that a laboratory was sited near the wet market outbreak site, a position that matched the Chinese version of events, because Hancock's narrative strayed from that official position, he had his book censored. Although that doesn't exonerate him from his other transgressions, does it? Now, the government as a whole was, one assumes, all working from the same information. So what made Hancock believe that the government position was false? Anyway, the whole mess has got murkier with the former US government advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci coming under pressure in the US. There are allegations that he has connections with the aforementioned laboratory and funded certain research within it that may have amplified the effects of the health emergency. And during a recent grilling by Senator Rand Paul, when he had these allegations put to him, Dr. Fauci was visibly shaken and took to fiddling with elastic bands. Look at those hands shake as he fiddles. He looks very flustered. And straight away I thought of that scene from the Caine Mutiny where Captain Queeg, so well acted by Humphrey Bogart, took to playing with his ball bearings when being cross-examined at a court-martial. Maybe Dr. Fauci needs some stress balls or a fidget spinner instead of a rubber band. He did look bothered though, didn't he? Could the conspiracy theorists be right? Could this be lab-derived with US involvement? And the questions are coming in thicker and faster for Fauci, but one does have to wonder why he's getting so bothered. After all, it seems that the UK government is backing an official position that exonerates Fauci. So is the US, and so is Peking. So isn't Fauci bulletproof? Or is he worried that there's a large bus trundling his way and he doesn't want to give anyone the opportunity to push him under it? However, now comes along a certain Dr. Robert Redfield, who served as the 18th director of the US CDC, and the allegations he makes against Fauci and others are eye-watering about this wet market story. Redfield told Congress that this was narrative that was decided that they were going to say this came from a wet market and they were going to do everything they could to support it, to negate any discussion about the possibility that this came from a lab. Now, some in the US establishment seem to be warming to the theory that it had more to do with labs than markets. But if this gains a head of steam, it will mean upsetting Beijing and also possibly opening a can of worms very close to the US home. After all, people would start asking what was Fauci's involvement. Did he help finance it? And if so, where or who did he get the dosh from? Now, Richard has a little more to say on this in a moment, but first I just want to ask, is the European Union lining up to breach the UK-EU Brexit Treaty, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement or TCA? I ask this because EU member states like Germany, Poland, Bulgaria and Italy are all making noises about ditching some of their net zero commitments because of the damage it might do to their economies, especially their automotive industries. Now, those net zero commitments are all part of EU law, and this is going to cause the EU Commission and its President Ursula von der Leyen a set of headaches. Because net zero is impacting badly on ordinary EU citizens, and those ordinary EU citizens are also pesky voters that might get in the way of the grand Brussels net zero plans. Now, one of these headaches is that either Brussels is forced to roll over when a qualified minority of the EU Council vote net zero measures out, or when net zero supporting MEPs get rejected at the next EU Parliament elections. Or Brussels is going to have to get all dictatorial and force stuff through somehow, so upsetting the pesky voters again. But the trouble for Brussels is that the route to net zero was mapped out before the UK and EU signed up to a lot of this net zero stuff, including a future roadmap. And that was all locked down in international law when both the EU and UK signed the Brexit Trade and Cooperation Agreement. And here's what the House of Commons Library says about these non-regression provisions. Non-regression provisions are there to ensure that protections are not reduced below the levels at the end of the transition period if that would affect trade or investment. The UK and EU both commit to maintaining effective oversight and enforcement systems with administrative or judicial means of challenge and redress. Now, in the run-up to signing the TCA, both London and Brussels were typically working their little cotton socks off to outdo each other on how much net zero green they would commit to. And now, with both sides being so heavily tied in, the first side to blink will have the other side claiming they've broken the non-regression clauses. Claims of breaking agreements and the like. And that might put the industrialised EU member states at a disadvantage, so giving the UK an edge when the EU wants to renegotiate over this. Just an idea. Now back to Dr. Fauci. Richard.
I think we need to get this straight in our minds. If the government knew that secret work done in a lab in China at the behest of Anthony Fauci caused the global health emergency, it would mean the unthinkable has happened. And that is, the state has covered up the truth about the past 3 years and can no longer be trusted. Yes, that's right, no longer trusted. I mean, it's all hypothetical, of course, because if our government did know such a thing, if such a thing were true, that is, that would mean our government would be at war with us. And we should all march upon London demanding the arrest of our entire political and ruling class, with a few exceptions. Well, thank goodness it isn't true, because it can't be true. So panic over, and no need to get all uppity about it. No. You see, our government has our best interests at heart. And I will have you know that anyone who says anything different is a traitor. We must all be immensely grateful that such noble and trustworthy people such as Anthony Fauci are in important positions of power. Yes, people like Fauci and Matt Hancock are the embodiment of decency, and they should not be questioned. Never. If you ever see Mr. Fauci or Mr. Hancock in the street, you should bow down to them and sincerely compliment them upon their wisdom and thank them for their hard work to ensure that we were all kept safe. Yes, that's right. Think about it. Just thank them sincerely. Yes. Sorry. You see my aforementioned hypothetical statement at the beginning. If it were true, and our government, along with all governments, worked in lockstep in full knowledge that the health emergency was something started by Mr. Fauci, it would mean we would be in a position where all other political decisions and world events would become almost irrelevant, because it would be impossible for the human race to move on until this issue was properly dealt with. And by that I mean properly dealt with, as in it would make the Nuremberg trials look like going to see the headmaster after being late for school. Millions have died because of it, and billions took something as a result of it, and they could also be in danger. But anyway, it's all hypothetical. So, what do you think about Anthony Fauci and the allegations that he commissioned certain work in a lab in China and started the health emergency? Do you believe it? I'm not sure I do. Well, or maybe I'm just not saying. Anyway, let us know in the comment section below.